Dear student, welcome again to the course titled Principles of Management, and in this course we are learning the part 10, that is the controlling process of the management. And in the part 10 so far we have an understanding about the concept about the controlling, the importance about the controlling process, what are the different steps required to a manager to have an effective control mechanism, the different types of the control we have learned about it. We have discussed thoroughly about the interrelationship between the planning and the control, and how control as a effective tool can be used by the management in order to achieve the desired level of the organizational objectives. So, we have in this particular part we have learned the last management principle, which is controlling, and if we have to define the control, is how the management is within the planning phase, they try to set the benchmark or the standards. In the next phase it will be measurement of the performances of the subordinates, and the last will be how you are checking the any kind of deviations or the variations in the overall performances as compared to the standards. And ultimately what is the objective? Objective is to make sure that the learning from the deviation should not be repetitive in the next project of the company. So, we can say that the planning is the initiation of the activity, where all things you plan for the future activities, whereas the management controlling is how you are reviewing the different plans in terms of the actual performances. So, it laid down the foundation for the future projects. So, controlling, we have also learned that it is also a future oriented program. In this module 49, we will be thoroughly understanding the principles of effective controlling system, like what are the different mechanisms that a manager should be kept in mind while they are having the controlling mechanism. Second is the management by exception or control by exception. So, there is a concept of management by exception in which we will be studying that all things cannot be controlled. There will be very specific thing which are management or a superior will evaluate. If it is going beyond them, beyond their control, these activities need to be closely monitored, or the controlling mechanism will be towards those activity. Alright. So, let us try to understand the various principles of effective controlling system. Very first one is focus on objectives and needs. What is controlling? Let us define the term controlling once again. Controlling is the process of reviewing your existing plan, whether the plan is going as per the set direction or not. This is what we have learned, the controlling mechanism. Okay. So, the controlling process will try to alienate the different activities of the different subordinates or the different managers towards the set objectives or towards the planned objective of the organization. So, ultimately it focuses on the objectives and needs of the different levels of the management. Alright. Suppose let us try to understand with an example. If the whole department is working towards a very big project, alright, the project is with respect to environmental sustainability in their practices. So, will it be the only production department will be using this sustainability concept in their production processes? Will it be enough for the company to claim that they are very environmental sustainable company? No. So, it will be the coordinated effort of all the different level of the all the different department to make sure that as a unit, organization can be termed as a sustainable unit or the sustainable company. Okay. So, the mission is to become more sustainable or more pro-environmental. Okay. So, the controlling mechanism will be guiding all the activities, all the process of each department, and it will be like oriented towards the objectives and needs. What is the need? To become more pro-environmental. All right. Second is looking forward. What we have discussed in the characteristics of the controlling, that it is something which is like set the stage for the future activities. All right. Planning is also a future oriented activity, but in the planning, like you are more towards the uncertainty parts. Okay. Planning is something more like personal, impersonal, whereas controlling is somehow it is impersonal. Okay. Now, how it is forward looking? Forward looking means like we have discussed the three type of the plan. One plan is with respect to after the project is completed, you review the plan. All right. Second is the concurrent controlling process, where you discuss the ongoing project and you take the controlling measures. And last one is like for the future or for the future activity, you have the controlling mechanism. So, considering the very first type of the plan, where the feedback from the existing performances, okay, is gathered. Like you have a standard one, standard performance, which is set at the planning stage, we have already discussed. Second will be your actual performances. It will be compared. There will be comparison between these two, and there will be some kind of deviation. If deviation is there, it means you need to have a proper cause and effect relationship between what could be the reason for the deviation, what are the different parameters that we have not done effectively, because of which the deviation occurs. Okay. So, suppose out of that you got 5 major problems or the 5 areas where you need to learn more, improve more. Okay. So, whenever you will be having further projects, okay. So, in the further project, these 5 element or these 5 factor will be taken into the consideration, improvement will be there. So, ultimately we can call it as a forward looking process, because it sets the stage or it provide the proper ingredients, so that we can like have more effective plans or more effective in terms of the your productivity, or in terms of their sales growth, in terms of the profit, okay, customer acquisition, you will be more able to cater in these parameters. So, second principle that we have cleared. Third one is prompt. Prompt action is necessary. Okay, like take the second type of the planning controlling mechanism, that is the concurrent. What we have learned in the concurrent controlling mechanism, that any deviation that we observe, we have to immediately like cater to the solutions, or we have to very quick in terms of changed adaptive or changed situations. So, the management has to be very adaptive in that situations. All right. So, prompt is more reliable as in the type of the concurrent controlling mechanism, where suppose we can take one hypothetical example. If you placed some orders with the suppliers, okay. Now, the supplier has promised you that they will be delivering the raw material within 3 months. Okay. Based on that, you have promised a vendor or a client that you will be delivering the product in 4 months. Now, suppose the situation changes. Okay. Now, the supplier is taking 5 months to deliver the raw material. As a result, what will happen? You will not be able to deliver the promised date of the delivery to the clients within 4 months. What will happen again? Your brand or the goodwill will hamper. Now client can move to another company. So this is a situation where you need to take some kind of controlling measures. All right. So quite like prompt action is necessary sometimes, so that immediately that particular situation can be resolved. This is the third principle of your controlling mechanism. Next is critical point control. Like we will be discussing very like elaboratively about the management control by exception, in which the principle says that the manager does not need to like control all the activities of their subordinates. Okay. Only the critical aspects should be monitored or should be checked or should be like controlled, and rest of the points or the rest of the factor should be like done by the subordinate themselves. It will be having some implications or the benefits in terms of the subordinates, that they will be more efficient in solving like smaller problems. Like imagine for any kind of problem, the subordinates are going towards the superior. So what their learning will be? They will not be able to learn any practical aspects. So the management believes that only the critical aspects should be effectively controlled by the superior, and rest of them should be like tackled by the subordinate themselves. Your controlling mechanism should be flexible enough. Okay. In terms of like the external environment changes, like the political factor, the social factor, technological factor changes. All right. Now, if you become very rigid in terms of like any kind of controlling mechanism, or you are very strict towards your subordinate, if the result is not as expected, it means there is some deviation from the standards. But the deviation is because of some external factor, the political, the social, the technological. So your controlling mechanism should be flexible enough. It should be like have the you can say the option through which it can change or adapt itself. It should not be too much of rigid, so that no action can be taken whenever any adverse situation is there. All right. So these are the 5 principles. Again, we have some other like objectivity. So the principles of the controlling should be based on the like objective of the organization. Objective of the organization means, like suppose your objective is to increase 20% of the total sales. However, as compared to the standard one, your actual performances only increase 12% of the total sales. Now what the company will do? The company will be like trying to orient all their efforts towards achieving the actual objective. Okay. So the point is, the controlling measures or whatever the remedial action that you take, it should be based on, or it should be directed towards the objective only. It should not be like oriented towards punishing the subordinates, or like sharing the like obligations, like you are just passing on the responsibility, blaming others. Okay. So it should have a wider approach, which should be focused towards ultimately achieving the desired objective. 7th one, it should be economical as well. Like taking the same example forward, you have achieved 12% of the total sales and 8% is your deviation. All right. Ultimately, you need to achieve 20% of the total sales. All right. Now, one effort could be like you are hiring too many sales personnel. All right. To fill this gap, you are hiring too many sales personnels. Ultimately, what will happen? The cost of paying the salary towards the sales personnel will be too much high, and ultimately the benefit you would have been got based on 20% sale is minimized because your cost has increased. Got the point? So, ultimately the controlling mechanism should not be like although you are achieving the 20% marks, the objective of the organization, but at the cost of like paying higher salary towards your sales personnel. So, there should be a balance between the cost and ultimately your achievement of the objective. All right. Second is motivation. Now, it is an important aspect because there are certain principles which are based on the motivations. We have discussed the theory of motivation, various theories, Maslow's need hierarchy theory, Auchi's theory, theory X and Y, and so many other theories. But all these theories is oriented toward influencing the behavior of your employee. Now, we are discussing the controlling mechanism. The controlling mechanism is like somehow, suppose you are a subordinate, all right. Now, your superior is pressurizing you to achieve the standards anyhow. He is not or she is not thinking of whether you are having time for your family or not, whether you have taken proper food and sleep or not. All right, these things we have discussed in the Maslow need hierarchy theory. If these aspects are missing, suppose although you have achieved the standard one, but at the cost of your health, but at the cost of your like family, you are not able to meet your family. Okay. Ultimately, your blood pressure has increased. So, is it the feasible one? No. In the future, that employee motivation will be lower to perform those tasks in a repetitive manner. It is not like one time you are like performing the activity, you have to be continuously do the activity in the organization. Okay. So, the management should think that the motivation level of the employees should be also high when their controlling mechanism are infused. Okay. Creating too much of pressure or like blaming the subordinate for all the fault or the deviation is not feasible. Okay. So, the motivation level of the employee should be higher at the same time, and the proper work should be completed. Okay. So, there should be a balance between the like integrity, motivation of the employee as well as like objective of the organization. Next one is suggestive. If you are doing any controlling, like controlling is sometimes criticized as it is very costly process. Why it is costly? Because it takes too much of time. It requires some special attention by it may be that you are hiring some expert from the external. Okay. It requires certain resources as well. So, ultimately the cost for the controlling process is very high. Now, ultimately if the controlling measure or the controlling process is not indicating any kind of suggestions for the future improvements, that controlling mechanism is of no use. Why we have the controlling mechanism? To check any kind of deviation from the existing plan. If the existing plan is deviated and we do not know what are the root cause for that, then what is the point of having the controlling mechanism? If we do not have any kind of suggestion for the future improvement, again the problem will be there, persistence of the problem will be there, because you have not identified the problem, you have not resolved the problem. That is why the principle of controlling mechanism says that it should be suggestive in nature. And last one, simple. It is the most important aspect, like every employee should be able to understand what are the standards or the benchmark for which they are working. Okay. Take one example, a salesperson is given the target to achieve 10,000 of the units to be sold each week. So, it is very simple, it has clarity on the minds of the salesperson that by anyhow it is their duty to reach the 10,000 unit of the sales mark per week. Is it clear? But if the salesperson does not have any kind of quantitative number, and at the end the manager is scolding them that you have not done well or your performance is very poor, you will be having the wage cut, you will not be given any kind of bonus. So, this thing should not be done. Okay. The coordination should be simple in terms of like clarity of information about the standardized aspects. Standardized aspect could be with respect towards the time, we have discussed it, with respect to time, with respect to quality, all right, with respect to in terms of proficiency, productivity. So, standardization can be of different type meaning, and the same thing should be clearly, or it should be very simple to understand by the different workers. So, these are some of the important principles of the controlling, and in the next part we will be trying to understand the management by exception or control by exception. Now, this principle or this concept is based on the humanism factor that all the employee who or the different subordinates should be given the opportunity to tackle some of the problems themselves. Okay, any kind of odd situation that is hampering the overall activity as compared to the standard one, the subordinate should be given the opportunity to, like, to a certain extent, not all the time, they should be given the opportunity to tackle those problems. So, let us try to understand. Based on this approach, it is recommended that management should be only informed about the unusual deviation from the norms that are deemed significant. That we have already discussed in one of the principle is the critical point control, the fourth one. Now, if suppose your superior or your top management are engaged in taking the corrective action or improving all the activities of the subordinates all the time. So, what will happen? Ultimately, they will not be able to focus on their duties, all right, because most of the time they are busy in improving your activity because you are not able to meet out as per the standards, all right. So, the management believes that only those factors which are very critical, okay, which need immediate action for the improvement, only those factors should be identified, and the top level manager should have high level engagement in improving those certain activities. That is why we call it management by exceptions. Exception means like you are not going to monitor all the activities of the subordinates, only those activities which require immediate action, that we have discussed in the concurrent control. Okay. Like subordinates are doing their work efficiently, but sometimes some of the activities are beyond their control. So, those activity they can discuss with the superior regarding what could be the possible solution, what the decision that need to be taken in that situation. Only those situation or those factors should be discussed with the superior. Let us take an example, like the production manager establishes a quality control standard where only 5% defect is like admissible. Okay. Like out of the 100 units that the manufacturer or the units that the production manager or the production subordinate that they are manufacturing, out of 100 only 5% is deviation is permissible, okay, accepted. But if those deviation exceed 5%, okay, suppose out of 100 units more than 5%, defects we have like seen. In that situation, the matter will be reported to the production manager, because the manager is the head of all the production subordinates. Okay. If the deviation is increases by 5%, it means up to 5% the management also assumes that there could be deviation. You cannot achieve the 100% result all the time. So, the flexibility with respect to 5% is given to the subordinates, but if it is exceeding by 5%, the exception will be not taken into the consideration, and the manager has to like report or have to look into the situation, like why more than 5% the deviation is increasing, what could be the specific problem, okay, and the solution can be like taken to reduce it below the 5%. Now, what are the benefits? So, we have understood about the concept, like what are the concept about the management by exception or control by exception. Now, why it is done, what could be the different benefits the organization can be getting out of the control by exception. Very first one, routine issue are delegated to those in lower position. Like there could be some problem which have the routine nature, like these things always occur, like you are short of the raw material, for example. Sometimes the demand exceeds, in that situation it could be that your planned raw material quantity can be lower. So, all these factors which are of routine nature can be delegated to the lower positions. Managerial talent and effort are more effectively utilized. The thing which I was discussing, like if you believe your subordinates that they can tackle the small issues, their efficiency will be highlighted and increased at the same time. Third one, it facilitates delegation of authority. There is an increase in the span of control. This leads to the motivation and development of the subordinates. It means that the more and more you are trusting your subordinates and giving them authority to tackle the small issues within the organization, it will develop a sense of motivation, sense of belongingness, because they themselves are like solving some of the smaller issues within the organization, which does not require immediate controlling action by their bosses. It is the human nature that no one would like to be controlled by others, until unless they are able to like perform all the activities by themselves. But if the activities are beyond that particular subordinate, it is like advisable to have a controlling mechanism. Next one, it forces manager to review history and study related business data to identify the deviation. Okay, what could be the possible reasons for the deviation? It can be identified using management by the control, because they get to know about what are the different methodology or the different reasons because of which the deviation is occurring. If suppose the same example, the 5% deviation was allowed by the management. Out of the 100 unit that you are manufacturing, 5 units can be defective. It is accepted. But after 3 months, every 3 months, suppose the deviation is exceeding by 7%, 8%. So, there will be certain trend pattern which can be learned, that why it is happening. Is it because of the seasonal changes? there could be some set patterns for that. It can avoid uninformed and impulsive action of the management. Management by exception provide a yardstick for judging the result. Okay, like you will be able to learn about the different capabilities of your subordinates, that how efficiently they are learning the different situation for controlling mechanism. All right. With this, we quickly discussed about the limitation part of the management by exception as well. First one, it requires comprehensive system for recording and reporting of data. Like you need to have all the data regarding when the deviation occurred, what measures which has been taken, all right, who was the subordinate under which the deviation was identified, who took the decision regarding the smaller issues. Okay, so it all required a comprehensive reporting and recording system. It tend to multiply paperworks. Sometimes, like you are allowing the subordinates to tackle the problem by themselves. So ultimately what happened, it increases the workload, or it increases the routine work, and ultimately too many activities are multifold. Okay. So it not only increases the paperwork, but it also consuming the time of the subordinates. Take one example, suppose the problem which was 3 or 4 subordinates that they are facing and trying to get the solution for like 3 to 4 months. If they would have discussed with the subordinates, the problem would have been solved within like 2 hours. So ultimately what happened? What is happening? The problem is that the subordinate is taking too much of time for the smaller issues as well. So it is a cost for the organization. Third one, it may provide false sense of security for the organization and for the employees as well. Difficult to identify the critical or exceptional deviation. It is very difficult, like we talk about like exceptional things should be given, only the critical aspects should be monitored by the top management. Like how you will be able to identify that this is less critical, it is high critical. It could be the less critical aspect can become high critical in the future as well. So there is no point of differentiation between the like degree of criticalness. Provide a substitute for thinking. It is not a substitute for the judgment. You cannot fully take the factors of the subordinates for the final decision making. You have to review the things again. And last one, it may lead the manager to interpret that the exceptions as only a nonsense to be avoided. Okay. So these are some of the limitations of management by exception, and with this we have completed this module, and in the next module we will be discussing about the behavioral aspect of the controlling mechanism. That's all for this session. Thank you so much.